Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Continue our focus on the state of the oil and gas industry. Of course, a lot of developments have come up. Saudi Arabia and Iraq are battling Nigeria to gain more market share from India, which is the world's third largest crude oil importer. Nigeria was the third largest supplier of crude oil to India in January this year. About 500,000 barrels per day was supplied to India, behind Saudi Arabia's 940,000 barrels per day and Iraq's 930,000 barrels per day. But in spite of that, we're still having our own issues back home, where we're seeing the petrol scarcity bite harder across the country. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is swamped and inundated with growing calls to ensure that we have more of this product supplied across the country. Working very closely with the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMAN, the NNPC says it's trucking out as much as it can. But then again, there's also this downside that only 50 trucks can leave depots every day. So how does this now offset the issue, the lack of the petroleum products that we're having in the market at the moment? So the NNPC has to look into that and see what it can do alongside the PPMC. Let's bring in Okweyemi Oguntade now as we continue to look at all of these issues. A good morning to you, Okweyemi.
Morning, Harriet.
It's great to have you on the program. Now, so listening to what I just said, what are the issues currently facing the NNPC? Because it seems as if it's got a heap load of it on its table.
Well, yes, it does. The fuel scarcity currently happening right now, it's surprising, really. And the reason why we are seeing fuel scarcity has been attributed to the scarcity of forex. And most oil importers, oil marketers are blaming the NNPC, saying that they haven't supplied enough refined crude to them. And the NNPC has come out to say, okay, they're going to increase the amount of trucks that leave the port from about 245 to 295 in March to solve these issues of fuel scarcity. And likewise, they also said the same for Abuja, from 160 to 210, and in other key cities like Kaduna and Kano and others. But the question is, why are we having fuel scarcity when the NNPC has been given the license to import about 75%, while all marketers are entitled to 25% in terms of oil importation? And if scarcity of forex is the main issue here, we would be considering the fact, we would be blaming it on the 25% that they're not able to source forex to be able to import refined crude. But since NNPC is entitled to 75%, it is expected that even if the oil marketers are finding it difficult to import, the 75% should be able to make up for the losses on that 25% side. And at that point, we would believe that we shouldn't see fuel scarcity in Lagos, but Lagos is the area where we're seeing fuel scarcity has gotten to Lagos as well. So the issue for NNPC, I believe, is be sourcing for forex, and as well as building our refineries in such a way that we are not exposed to these external forces that affect our ability to perform domestically. So for NNPC, I would say we need to look into our refineries, our local refineries, and try and build them up in such a way that they can meet up with the domestic consumption.
But then you see, Okweyemi, it's been said, on the streets and in some forums that the challenges once upon a time used to be pricing, but that has been fixed. Okay, so now we have a proper template for how much it is that the price the product is sold for. But then it's kind of like product supply from the NNPC and other markets, which you've also mentioned, versus increasing demand from other domestic users. So if we cannot, for instance, get those 4 refineries functioning at optimal level, what do you think should be done with regards private refineries? That's been in this space for a very long time. Why is it that we're not looking at that particular option?
Well, the government, the new administration is open to that option, in the sense that last year they opened up a bidding process, and they granted private licenses to private investors to set up refineries close to the already built in state-run refineries. But the issue with this strategy, so to speak, is that refineries need to be close to the source of wealth. that's where production, exploration, and extraction is going on. And most of our refineries are not, the state-run refineries are not, in terms of capacity, are not close to the production. So for the new administration, the ideal thing to do would be
Well,
to
Okwemi, let me interrupt this conversation. We'll try to re-establish connection with you to continue the conversation. We're looking at the state of Nigeria oil and gas industry and latest on petrol and crude oil. Talking to Okwemi Oguntade, a senior investment officer with Financial Derivatives Company. We'll try to re-establish contact with her and continue this conversation. So Business Morning returns in just a moment. Welcome back. We seem to have gotten Okwemi back, re-established contact with Okwemi Oguntade, who is a senior investment officer with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much, Okwemi, for staying with us. So we were talking about encouraging the construction of more private refineries. Could you pick your thoughts up from there?
Yes, like I said earlier, the government started, the new administration started an initiative last year, and they granted license to 30 private investors to build refineries near the existing state-run units. But ideally, what we should have in refineries is that they should be designed in such a way that we are able to cut costs. And the cost-cutting measures in this instance would be making sure that refineries are located close to the point of extraction and production. But now, in Nigeria's case, ideally, Niger Delta would be the best location to locate your refinery, to develop or establish your refineries. But given its reputation for vandalism and other pipeline disruptions, this may hinder private investors from setting up refineries at that location. So I guess for the NNPC, the first thing would be to beef up security around the region.
But then, sorry to interrupt you. Okwemi, sorry to interrupt you. At a time where you already mentioned it, we're having serious issues accessing forex, and the oil marketers, these oil companies are having very serious issues as well accessing forex, which is one of the many reasons why they can't get the product. So if you can't get the money, the finance to buy or to import, as the case may be, where are you going to get the money from to build these refineries? Because don't forget that oil and gas sector contributed very heavily to non-performing loans for the banking sector. And so the banks are very averse right now to lending to any company from the oil and gas sector. So how is it going to work?
Well, that's the thing. This is the government isn't able to access funds to build these refineries. The next thing is to source funds from borrowing. Now, borrowing could be international and it could be domestic as well. Like you rightly mentioned, banks are becoming increasingly adverse to putting out funds in the oil and gas industry. But that is for exploration and production. We're looking at the downstream sector now. This is refining. And if anything, we know that in terms of petrol, premium motor spirit, there's always going to be consumption of that commodity in the market. So that would be a silver lining, so to speak, in terms of pushing our proposal there to get access to funds to set up refineries. Refineries it's a profitable venture, and if the plans and the strategies are in place, banks would be more willing to grant the government funds to develop refineries.
But then, Okwemi, just before we round up this conversation, what does this latest crisis reveal about the state of the downstream sector?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
What does this latest crisis reveal about the state of the downstream sector?
It's basically showing us that, look, first of all, the decline in oil prices has significantly affected the downstream sector. It has also showed that our infrastructures are not in place to ensure that imported refined crude gets to the location where it could be sold off to the final consumers. So it also shows that even the NNPC in itself is vulnerable to this shock, and they're also having issues. Because if NNPC in itself has reduced its supply of imported crude to the oil marketers, it shows that even the NNPC, the government itself, is having issues with accessing forex to import refined crude that we need for the average Nigerians. And so, in this sense, the state of the downstream sector isn't exactly at best, and we hope that in the near term, just as the NNPC has promised that it's going to increase supply to the Nigerian public, this would help completely eliminate the resurgence of fuel scarcity that we see more like every other day or every month.
Yeah, it's becoming a recurring thing. But thank you so much, Okoyemi, for coming through for us on the program this morning. Okoyemi Oguntaye is a Senior Investment Officer with Financial Derivatives Company. Just to also give a quick recap, Bolaji already mentioned it when she was talking during the energy segment earlier on. Nigeria dominates merger and acquisition deals in 2015, despite dwindling crude oil prices. We saw about 28% of mergers and acquisitions done last year, about $3.2 billion deals. And according to Merger Market, who put together that report, nearly half of the M&A deals in Nigeria were domestic, with a total value of $1.5 billion. The local energy sector was active, where big energy companies like Shell and Chevron sold some of their assets to domestic players like Seplat and Seplat Petroleum and First Exploration and Petroleum Development Company. Of course, that's latest. You can get more on it on our website, channelstv.com. But we'll take a quick break now and try to see where the markets are this morning. Rotimi Fakayejo, CEO, Enterprise Stockbrokers, joins me after now to give us a feel at the Nigerian Stock Exchange.